All right. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to Black Swan Revelations. Today we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the Noahide laws, and there's 7 of them. So let's just jump in, and as we go along, feel free to ask any questions or anything as we go through this stuff together. And I think it's important to talk about this stuff, because if we're talking about the book of Revelation from time to time, which I do on my channel, it would be appropriate to talk about these 7 Noahide laws. So you might be asking, what are they? What are they? Well, let's just dive right in. Let's just dive right into them. So the 7 Noahide laws are moral and ethical guidelines given by God to Noah and his descendants, binding upon all of humanity. And this is important because this is all of humanity. And we're going to go through the scriptures where this comes from. But what you might not see is 7 Noahide laws specifically. But this is where some of the Orthodox Jews get their idea from, that there's 7 of them, and we're going to talk about what each one of the 7 is. But it's important to understand their mindset and how they came up with the 7 Noahide laws. So these laws are derived from Jewish tradition and are found in the Talmud, the Sanhedrin 56a to 60a, as well as other rabbinic sources. The original Noahide laws are inferred, and this is important, primarily from Genesis 9:1-7, where God gives commandments to Noah and his descendants after the flood. So there is no single verse in the Bible listing all 7 laws explicitly, but Jewish tradition derives them from the following passages. Genesis 9:1-7. So we're going to read it together. Chapter 9, verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand they are delivered. Notice there's no mention of people, no mention of humans being over other humans. It's before the flood, these animals weren't afraid of you. This is most likely why the animals were able to get to the ark so quickly. They weren't afraid of people. But now the fear and dread of animals is going to come upon the fear and dread of people, of the people that are getting off the ark, which is 8 people. These animals are now going to be afraid of people. Why? So they can scatter all over the world. That's the plan. So that anytime they see a person, they move. They move. They see people, they move. And that's for most wild animals, of course. So this was kind of the first rules that basically God was saying, look, this is what's going to happen now. These animals are going to flee from you. And every moving thing that shall liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, ye shall not eat. So basically now it's open season. You can, everything, remember before the flood, you guys were just eating green herbs. Well, now you can actually eat animals now. But there's a condition attached to that, and that is that you have to not eat flesh with life in it. And this is pretty straightforward today. Like when you go to a butcher shop, they're not allowed to present you with the option of, here's a limb. Would you like a leg? Would you like the breast? Would you like a wing or whatever? They don't do that. They have to kill the animal first. But back then, what people were tempted to do, because there may not be good refrigeration methods, is to lop off an animal's leg and repair the leg so it doesn't bleed to death, and then eat the leg, and then eventually eat the other leg, and then eventually eat the other two legs, and then eventually the animal would die. So God was preventing animals from being tortured, saying, don't eat animals alive, because that's what the Canaanites would do. The land that eventually they would move into is they would see an animal go by. They're like, you know what? This is a good time to eat. And they would start eating it, and they wouldn't even kill the animal. So it's inhumane. So this is where this idea comes from. Kill the animal first before you eat it. Don't just take it apart. Again, I think this is amazing. This is a good rule. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it. So if a beast kills you, that beast is to be killed. Again, pretty straightforward. And at the hand of man. So if somebody kills someone, murders someone, you're to be killed. That's called capital punishment. Again, no problem with this. You got to weed out the land of murderers. You can't just murder people whenever you feel like it. You need to have some kind of rule. And here's the rule. Look, you're not allowed to murder each other. Whoever murders someone, another person has to go and kill that person to stop the murdering. So it says here, and at the hand of the man, at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. So basically, if you kill someone, his brother is going to come after you and kill you, and then it's over. The punishment is over. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. Again, straightforward. And you, and this is the final verse, and you, be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. Not a problem. Get married. Have lots of kids. Don't murder each other. That's a good rule. So far, these 7 verses make sense to me. They make the most sense. Don't torture animals to death when you're eating them. And don't kill each other. That's the basic principle here. And go forth and multiply. That's it. Pretty straightforward. If you live under this mandate, you're pretty good. Like, just don't kill each other. Don't do it. Pretty straightforward. So here are the 7 Noahide laws. And notice in the background, I have a guillotine and some stone tablets here, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But here are the 7 Noahide laws. Do not worship idols. There's prohibition. How come I can't say it today? Prohibition. Man, I just, my tongue is tied right now. It's not allowed. Idolatry is not allowed. I'm thinking of probation. Anyways, Genesis 2:16, the Talmud in the Sanhedrin 56b. This is where it says, do not worship idols. Prohibition. I believe that's how it's worded. Do not blaspheme God's name. So again, prohibition against cursing or blaspheming against God. Again, no problem with that. This is also found in Leviticus 24:16 and in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 56a. Do not murder. Again, no problem with this one. Prohibition against unlawful killing. Genesis 9:6, and this is also in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 57a. Do not commit sexual immorality. Prohibition against adultery, incest, and other forbidden relations. Now, they get this from Leviticus, because before that, there wasn't a law against this stuff. There wasn't a law. There wasn't any 10 commandments saying do this, because this was right after the flood. But the Jews, the Orthodox Jews, came up with some rules they added to this. So again, not a problem. Do not commit sexual immorality, specifically adultery, incest, and other forbidden relations. I think you can include fornication. So this is found Genesis 2:24 in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 58a. So basically, when you get married, you're to be with that woman, and you're not to go with other women, all this kind of stuff. So this is the behind the scenes kind of where this idea came from. No adultery. Do not steal. Again, makes sense, but they got that obviously from Leviticus, later added, but it makes sense. The idea behind it, obviously you don't want to steal from your neighbor. Again, no problem. Leviticus 19:11, Talmud, Sanhedrin 56b. Do not eat the limb of a living animal. So this is their sixth commandment, if you will, of the Noahide laws. And this is, just so you know, this is created for you. This is created for the Gentiles. This is not created for the Jews, because the Jews have their 613 laws to follow. They have the 10 commandments. They have the Torah. They have all that stuff. So they created this for you. They designed this for you because you're lawless. You don't know what to do with yourself. So they took it upon their hands after the flood. We're talking probably 1,000+ years, maybe arguably 2,000 years after the flood, to say, hey, you know what? These non-Jews, they need to have some rules, and we're going to make them. And maybe someday in the future we can enforce them, but we want them to follow these 7 rules. We think it's reasonable. They came up with that. The Gentiles didn't come up with this. Do not eat the limb of a living animal. Prohibition against cruelty to animals and consuming flesh taken from a living creature. No problem. This is in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 59a. And then the seventh one, which they added, is called Establish Courts of Justice, Obligation to Create a Legal System to Enforce Justice. So Genesis 9:5, and this is in the Talmud, Sanhedrin 56b. Meaning, what does this mean? It means you Gentiles are to create your own courts of justice, and if you can't do it, we're going to enforce our own rules upon you. That's basically what they're saying here. So if you follow this, we're cool. If you follow this, we're cool. So again, back to the first one. This one's a big one. We'll pay attention to this one. Do not worship idols. Prohibition against idolatry. Okay, not allowed. Idolatry not allowed. This is a big one. So we're going to come back to this. The penalties for violating the Noahide laws are primarily derived from the Talmud, Sanhedrin 57a to 60a, and Jewish legal tradition. This is not found in our Bible. It's not found in the Torah. It's not found in the Old Testament. It's not found in the New Testament, to be clear. This is found in the Sanhedrin. Unlike Mosaic law, which applied specifically to Israel, the Noahide laws, which were created by Jews, were considered universal laws binding upon all humanity, excluding the Jews, because they have their own laws. So they're putting this on everyone else but a Jew. The general penalty is death by beheading. That's what they instituted. This is in the Sanhedrin. That's capital punishment. This is what they wanted to be a part of this 7 Noahide laws, is if you are an idolater, you will be killed by the courts by beheading. If you commit adultery, same thing. If you steal, any one of these. So according to the Sanhedrin 57a, and if you have questions, put them all in caps and we'll come back to talk about this. But this is leading into the book of Revelation. According to the Sanhedrin 57a, the tradition of the Jewish view is that a Gentile, a non-Jew, who violates any of the 7 Noahide laws is liable to the death penalty. The specific punishment mentioned in the rabbinic literature is beheading. They came up with that. It's not in the Bible. Considered the least severe form of execution. However, this was theoretical and dependent on an established legal system, not mob justice. They didn't like the idea of stoning, even though Moses said if you have 2 or more witnesses, the whole community is to stone that person because everyone is responsible for administering justice. These Jews that formed the Sanhedrin didn't like that. They didn't like it. Instead, they said it was more sophisticated to just behead someone. They didn't like the mob justice. When again, God said if there's only one witness, it's basically he said, she said. But if you have 2 or more witnesses that said, hey, this person stole, hey, this person committed adultery, hey, this person murdered someone, they're to be stoned to death. But they changed it to beheading. Specific penalties for each law according to the Talmudic and the rabbinic sources. Idolatry. So worshiping false gods or engaging in pagan rituals results in capital punishment. This is found in Sanhedrin 56a. Blasphemy. Cursing God or speaking inverently of him, I can't read today, is punishable by death. Irreverently. So irreverentially, if you are speaking irreverently about God, cursing him, cussing him, you could be beheaded. Murder, killing another person unlawfully carries the death penalty. So no longer will you have an avenger, like a family member, go after someone because they killed that person's brother. And Moses allowed it. He said, look, I'm going to make a city of refuge for people that accidentally kill someone. But if you murder someone, you're on your own. You can't use the city of refuge for a place to hide yourself because they will find you and the city is to kick you back out. You can't stay there as a murderer because they're going to kill you. Family members. That was the rule. Now it's changed to a court system where if you kill someone, doesn't talk about witnesses here, just says if you murdered someone, if you're accused of murdering someone, then you get the death penalty. You get your head. Engaging in adultery, incest, homosexual acts, bestiality, or other forbidden relations is punishable by death. Again, beheading. Theft. The penalty for theft is severe, potentially leading to death, though some interpretations suggest restitution. If you pay up, if you pay a fine, then you may be able to get off scot-free for theft. Otherwise, you could be beheaded as well. Eating the limb of a living animal. Cruelty to animals by eating flesh torn from a living creature is punishable by death in the strictest view. So if you do these practices, you are going to be killed. Failure to establish courts of justice. Societies that fail to uphold justice and enforce laws that are considered corrupt, or fail to uphold justice and enforce laws are considered corrupt and subject to divine punishment. So this is according to Sanhedrin 56a. So they're going to be keeping an eye on the Gentiles, saying, if you guys don't do what we say you should do, we're going to intervene. We're going to intervene. So the question of the day, are Christians guilty of breaking the Noahide laws? The answer is yes, we're guilty. Which one? Some rabbinic opinions, Tosafot on the Sanhedrin 33b and Ran on Avodah Zarah 2a, argue that Christianity constitutes Avodah Zarah, idol worship, due to the deification of Jesus, making Jesus as God. Meaning, if this view is followed, Christians would be guilty of breaking the Noahide law against idolatry, therefore, theoretically liable for the death penalty under strict Noahide enforcement. So if you had a body in power, like the Sanhedrin, and you're a Christian, and they bring you before the court and they tell you to deny Christ, and you say, no, I believe Jesus Christ is God, you're done. Toast. So what happens to Christians? If considered idolaters, Christians would in theory be subject to Noahide court penalties, death by beheading. Isn't that interesting? Talks about that in the book of Revelation, that saints are going to be beheaded for their faith by not taking the mark of the beast. And if you think about some Jews, not all, some are waiting for their Messiah to come. And their Messiah is going to be a warlord and help them build the temple. And when this gets established, anybody that goes against their Messiah will be considered an idolater, and they will get their heads removed. So be subject to Noahide court penalties under a strict Noahide legal system. However, such enforcement is not practiced today. Why? Because there isn't a Sanhedrin body today. That's why it's not practiced. So you can argue, if there was, would they do it? That's the question everyone's asking. Talmud Sanhedrin 57a says a Noahide who engages, that's a non-Jew, in idol worship is liable to the death penalty. By what means? Rabbi Yishmael says by decapitation, as all punishment for the sons of Noah is by the sword. Again, this is made up. This is something that they came up with to enforce the non-Jews to prepare for the Messianic kingdom, the Antichrist kingdom, if you will. This passage establishes a beheading as the prescribed method of execution. Again, it's not in the Bible anywhere. For non-Jews, Noahides, that's what they call us, non-Jews, who violate the prohibition against idolatry under the Noahide laws. Talmud Sanhedrin 56a discusses the obligation of Gentiles to follow the Noahide laws and states that violations are punishable by death. This is in their Sanhedrin. 56.9 also states that a Gentile who transgresses any of the Noahide laws is liable for capital punishment. Rambam, the Maimonides or Mishnah Torah, law in Laws of Kings and Wars 9:14 says a Noahide who violates one of these 7 commandments shall be executed by the sword. Their judgment is not like that of a Jew. Rather, they are executed for even a single violation. So if Jews do something, they have their own law, 613 laws that they follow, so they're not under the Noahide law. This is just for the Noahides. This confirms that execution by the sword, beheading, excuse me, is the prescribed penalty for Noahides who transgress these laws. So now here's the modern Orthodox Jewish thought. Many modern halakhic authorities, as in the Chabad, some Haredi, and religious Zionist leaders, argue that enforcing Noahide laws would only apply in the Messianic era under a fully Jewish legal system. So basically they're saying it doesn't make sense to enforce this right now. One, we're not in power. And two, we're not in the Messianic era. So we're waiting for that. We're waiting for our Messiah to come, and then he'll help us establish a legal system to go after the Noahides. Some believe that idolatrous Gentiles should be warned and given a chance to repent before any punishment. Meaning, if you don't reject Jesus Christ, you could face capital punishment. So it is your job to understand what the 7 Noahide laws are. Memorize them. Because if you go against them, you'll be warned. Hey, look, you have to reject this Christianity nonsense. Okay? I'm going to give you a warning. If you follow Christ, if you ever call Jesus Christ your Messiah, if you ever worship him as God and acknowledge Jesus Christ as your Savior, as your God, as your judge, you could be liable for capital punishment. So what the thought is for a lot of Orthodox Jews is, look, we're going to give you ample warning to clean up your mess. If you don't do it, we're going to step in and we're going to intervene. But we're warning you guys. So it's perfectly acceptable if we usher in capital punishment. It's not like you guys haven't been warned. So be warned. This is coming. So the question is today, if the Sanhedrin were in power today, what would happen? If a Sanhedrin had full power in a Jewish theocratic state and applied the strictest Noahide laws, then yes, Christians who worship Jesus as God would be guilty of idolatry and theoretically liable for execution. However, most Jewish legal authorities believe that in modern times, penalties would not be enforced, and this is the key word, until the coming of the Messianic era, when the whole world will recognize one God. So they're basically giving you a pass today to say, look, we don't have power to authorize this. We can't enforce this until we're in the Messianic era. So this is they're holding back right now. So every time you witness to a Jew about Jesus Christ, especially a Jew that's in authority, an Orthodox Jew that tells you, look, I reject Jesus Christ, I reject your New Testament, I reject Paul, all this stuff, stop talking to me about Christ, because you're now jeopardizing yourself for the future because you are a blasphemer, you are an idolater. You're offensive to many of these Orthodox Jews, and they're holding back. They will smile and nod at you and say, thank you for sharing. Now please go. But believe me, if they were in power, talking about the Sanhedrin, they would have no problem in exercising capital punishment. So the conclusion, would Christians be executed? Theoretical halachic answer, yes. Under a strict interpretation of Jewish law, idolatry is punishable by beheading. And if you don't think you're considered an idolater to a Jew because you worship Jesus Christ, I have some bad news for you. You are an idolater according to many Orthodox Jews. This is why they don't want you in their synagogues. They don't mind you sitting at the back, but they don't want you talking about Jesus. They don't want you talking about salvation. They don't want you talking about heaven. They don't want you talking about Jesus Christ or Paul or any of that nonsense in the New Testament. It's blasphemy to them. Historical precedent. The Sanhedrin rarely enforced capital punishment. This is true. Why? Because back in the days when they were the most powerful, there was another country running the show, and that was the Romans. The Romans didn't allow them to just kill anyone because they said they worshipped another god. Why? Because the Romans worshipped all these gods. So they would be beheading people left, right, and center. And the Romans said, no, you can't do that. We have our own laws. You can't cut people's heads off just because they don't worship your God. So they put a stop to that. And after the destruction of the temple, the Sanhedrin dissolved, never came back to the power that they had. So the question is always asked, if they were in power today, like they were back then or trying to be, would they execute Christians? I think the answer would be yes. Modern practicality. In today's world, no active Sanhedrin exists, and most Orthodox Jews do not call for enforcement. That's important. But there is a Messianic expectation. Many believe that in the Messianic age, people will voluntarily abandon idolatry, making enforcement unnecessary. Meaning, if you reject Jesus Christ, there's no need to exercise capital punishment. Just reject idolatry. That's all you have to do as a Christian. That's it. Reject Jesus Christ, take the mark, and you're good to go. That's all you have to do, because then capital punishment is unnecessary. And in the book of Revelation, it says that anyone that refuses the mark of the beast is going to be beheaded. That sure lines up with the Sanhedrin. Sure lines up with that. Thank God they're not in power today. So again, I put today, many believe that in the Messianic age, people will voluntarily abandon idolatry, making enforcement unnecessary. That's today, though. Like today, it's unnecessary because we don't have any power. But one day, we could have power. So whenever you hear someone talk about the Noahide law and that it's a good thing, run. I'm telling you, run away as fast as you can. It's not the same as what we just read in Genesis 9, where God is telling Noah, look, be fruitful and multiply. These animals are going to be fleeing from you, but you're allowed to eat them now, and don't kill each other. I think that's a pretty loving thing to do. Don't kill each other. And you know what? I'm also going to put a rainbow in the clouds to show you that I'm not going to destroy the world again by a flood like I did before. So anytime you see that rainbow, you know that I'm promising not to destroy you by a flood. And today we see people using the rainbow for other devious means. It's horrible. But back to Noahide law, this is what's going to happen once the temple gets built. They're going to need a Sanhedrin built or established. And if you don't think so, look at this. I have a little video to share here. I'm not going to share the audio because I don't want this to get a copyright strike, but let's just see here real quick. I turned the volume off, but this is what the new temple is going to look like. This is the plans of what the temple looks like, and it's not anything like Solomon's temple. So they want the Sanhedrin to return and be judges, and they want to build this so that they can start executing people that don't follow their rules. So look at the design of this place. So this is the Sanhedrin's chamber. Again, this is the third temple, guys. This is what you want to get built. It's going to be, they're going to have a circle in the middle. They're going to have different areas for different judgments, depending what crime you've committed. It's all over the place. Look at this here. So if you think that this is going to be an ordinary temple, they're building it so that somebody can come in and sit down. And there's the courtroom. You're going to have 3 judges there, and they're going to have a whole bunch of panels. This is all going to be filled with Jewish leaders, Sanhedrin leaders, all throughout that court system. Then rabbis can go through here, all kinds of stuff. Like, it looks beautiful, right? It's all encircled. But here's where the judgment is. Look at that. Doesn't that look like the United Nations? This is what they want to build. It's not your little tiny temple that you're thinking in your head in Sunday school. They're going to have a library on one side. They're going to have all judges so that you have a chance before the court to be able to denounce Jesus Christ. Crazy, right? It's crazy. Did you guys see it? I'm not sure if I showed it to you. Maybe it didn't show up. Let me see. Oh yeah, I think you guys saw it, right? So it's interesting, and I think people aren't really talking about this. They're not really mentioning it, that, hey, what is that temple going to be built like? Well, it's going to be built so that you can have judges all around. Very end time-ish, if you ask me. So this is what they're up to behind closed doors. When I say they, who do I mean? I mean everyone that rejects Jesus Christ as their Messiah. They are wanting to build a temple, but it's not an ordinary temple. It's a temple for judgment. They're going to have animal sacrifice and all this stuff, but in order to have a temple, they need the Sanhedrin back. Why? So that they could judge all the Noahides. It's in their own Talmud. It's in their own Sanhedrin rules. They can't enforce it today because they're not in power. So once the temple's built, the next step is to have their Messiah come in and sit down and declare himself to be God. And the ones that don't worship him are going to flee. You can't make this stuff up, man. Can't make this stuff up. And I think sometimes we give Orthodox Jews a pass when they tell you to your face that they don't want anything to do with Jesus Christ. They don't want anything to do with your New Testament. And Paul offends them constantly. Don't think that they're not looking at you like an idolater. And yet we're like, well, yeah, I think they're going to be okay. And it's like, well, look what they're trying to set up. They're trying to set up a system in the future to prepare for their Messianic leader, which we know to be the Antichrist. Like somebody's coming in to sit in their throne and say, I am God, worship me. And it's going to be offensive to those that love Jesus Christ, but the ones that don't, no problem, have a seat. And they'll all sit around in the chamber and bring in most likely Christians first. Or anyone, again, if we're here and the temple's built, you're now an offender. It happened in the time of King David when Nathan went up to Bathsheba and said, look, did you not know that one of King David's sons is proclaiming himself to be a king? And because he's doing that, you and I are now considered offenders. And what do you think is going to happen to Solomon? They're going to get killed, all of them. Nathan, Bathsheba, Solomon, killed. That's what happens when you get a new king in town. You either have to relinquish or you have to be killed. And this was the fear when one of King David's other sons was declaring himself to be king. Nathan ran to Bathsheba and said, look, we are seconds away from being accused of treason because we follow David. And your son, don't think too hard about this. Your son is next. He's going to be killed. So you need to go and talk to David and remind him of the promise that he made to you that Solomon is going to be king. And I'll come in and I'll help you out as well. So as soon as Bathsheba went in there, she's saying, look, how come you didn't tell me your other son? Didn't you promise me that Solomon would be king? And as she's saying this, Nathan comes in and says, why didn't you tell me that your other son is going to be? I thought you made a deal with Bathsheba that Solomon was going to be your son. And David said, okay, bring Solomon here and prepare my mule, and I'm going to make him king right now. And everyone's like, long live the king. But they were seconds away from treason. So if you have a Messiah that is Antichrist in nature, calling himself God and does not accept Jesus Christ at all, you are now a treasonist. You are now an offender of that kingdom. And don't think they're going to not come after you because of that reason. You're a blasphemer against their king. Again, I'm not talking about all Jews. I'm talking about the ones that reject Jesus Christ as their king. And you can find these people out by going up to them and saying, do you think Jesus Christ is the king of the universe? And if they just get mad at you, chances are they're going to report you somewhere in the future that you're an offender. Again, you can't make this stuff up. Again, like, let's just say I'm wrong that we're not out of here. You're going to be an offender. Or let's just say we get raptured and somebody the next day after the rapture goes, you know what? I didn't take Jesus Christ seriously, but now I do take him seriously, and we're left behind. You better run, because you're now an offender against the kingdom, which is the Antichrist. And there will be people, including your neighbors, that will rat you out for food, for water, for jobs. They'll want your home. They'll want your cars. They'll want everything that you have because you believe in Jesus Christ. You're now an offender. You're an idolater, and you'll be brought before the Sanhedrin, and you'll be executed live in living color. That's what waits for those that do not know Jesus Christ, but are living in the tribulation, and they're running for their lives, avoiding the mark of the beast. It's for anyone. Christian, whoever becomes a Christian during the tribulation, and a non-Christian. If you think that you're going to get away scot-free, you have to renounce everything, and you have to acknowledge to the devil himself that you worship him, you worship the Antichrist, and which is known as the beast, and you worship the false prophet, and more specifically the image of the beast, because the false prophet's job is to make you take the mark of the beast, and if you don't, you're going to show up before the Sanhedrin, and boom, you're done. They're the ones that are going to be in charge of that temple. Don't kid yourself. Yeah, our proud treasonous. Yeah, like, again, I can't make this stuff up. Just go to any synagogue today and say, I love Jesus Christ. They'll smile at you and they'll say, please leave. Please leave. They just don't have the authority to kill you. They don't have the authority to take you out, to put you in prison. They don't have that authority right now, especially in America, especially in Canada. They can't do that. But if the temple's built, and if they bring in this Antichrist person who is known for war, and you speak ill of that person, especially on your YouTube channel, and say that person is an Antichrist, you could get a knock at the door by members of the Sanhedrin saying, come with us, please. We have a court in your town, and you're going to be executed unless you denounce Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. It's all over the book of Revelation. They're going after the remnant of Israel. They're going after the saints that are avoiding the mark of the beast. It's all in there. Crazy times, man. Crazy times. Israel voted with U.S. against more support of Ukraine. Yeah, except our prime minister issued another. This is one thing. This is kind of, for me, this is a little bit horrifying. There is a place in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. I don't know if you knew this as an American audience, but we actually build armored vehicles for Ukraine. And in fact, over the past 2 years, we've sent out 1,600 armored vehicles to Ukraine. Thank you very much. We actually hired 250 engineers from Ukraine to have a headquarters in one of our provinces to build military armaments, missiles, bombs, all kinds of stuff in Ontario. And we ship them to Ukraine to help them in their war effort. If they do something wrong, and let's say Trump and Russia, US and Russia become friends, and Ukraine becomes traitors, who do you think is next in line? We are. Why? Because we're supporting them. We're giving money to them. Trudeau just said we're going to give another $4.5 billion to President Zelensky. He went there to go hang out with him, to be buddy-buddy. No one else wants to hang out with Zelensky. But our prime minister, who has resigned from his position, is now in Ukraine visiting with Zelensky. What in the world is he doing there, sending our money to Ukraine with no receipts? As in, you don't have to owe us anything. At least in the US, they're saying, hey, we want all your mineral rights. We want all your resources. We want all that stuff. We want it all. But for Canada, like, it's embarrassing that our prime minister is going over there and all buddy-buddy when the whole world does not like or trust Zelensky. Ukraine was known as a corrupt nation before Zelensky came into power. They were rated by NATO as one of the most corrupt nations in the world. So how did they turn over a new leaf? How did all of a sudden they become righteous? I'm talking about the government. I'm not talking about the people. Didn't happen. They're still corrupt. And our leader is headed over there and hanging out. He's probably on his way back. It's just weird that we're actually funding this guy to go to Ukraine, and we have an armory in Canada that is building weapons to kill other people. It's crazy to me. It's insane. Well, he's making promises. He just promised another $4.5 billion to Ukraine, and he's making deals behind closed doors, and I don't know what he's up to. It's crazy, man. Just reading the comments here. Lots of comments. Any questions? If you have any questions, it's easier for me to read if you put it all in caps, or if there's a statement that you would like me to read out loud, put it all in caps, and then I can post it. Yeah, Brampton, Ontario. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Let me just see if I can find an article on that, but it's actually great. To me, it's disgusting. It may not be to other people, but I find it disgusting. I think the company name is Herschel. Or let's see here. So according to, the company name is called Rochelle Inc., a Canadian armored vehicle manufacturing company. This is surprising to me. I didn't know this. A week ago, I didn't know this stuff. So this company, Rochelle, Roshel, is a armored vehicle manufacturer and established a significant presence in Brampton, Ontario. In March 2024, last year, a year ago, the company announced $65 million investment to build new global headquarters and production facility in the city. This 140,000 square foot facility is designed to handle various operations, including painting, welding, mechanical works, and research and development. The expansion is expected to create approximately 500 advanced manufacturing jobs in Brampton, but not for Canadians, for Ukrainians. Rochelle has been actively supporting Ukraine by supplying armored vehicles for its defense efforts. Since the onset of the conflict, the company has delivered 1,600 personal carriers on the front lines. Additionally, Rochelle has employed more than 215 refugees, Ukrainian refugees. Now you know why Ukrainians are coming to Canada. They're building armaments at our expense. We're paying for them to come here to build weapons to go over there on the front lines and kill Russians. That's what they're here for. Integrating them into its workforce to aid in the production of these critical vehicles. These are like top engineers from Ukraine dispatched by Zelensky himself to Brampton, Ontario to build personnel carriers. In a further commitment to bolstering Ukraine defenses, Rochelle partnered with the Ukrainian Defense Industrial Company in February 2025, this month, to localize the production of armored vehicles with Ukraine. This collaboration aims to expedite the delivery of essential equipment to Ukrainian military units and stimulate the local economy by providing access to advanced manufacturing technologies. Through these initiatives, Rochelle Inc. played a pivotal role in supporting Ukraine's defenses while contributing to the economic growth and job creation in Brampton, arguably through hiring Ukrainians. So let's just see if we can have a look here at this place. Let's see, is there a website here? Just looking to see if I can find their website. Let me see if I can find it. Where is their website? Rochelle. Let me just see if I can find their website, because I think this is important. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I think it's important. Let's see what's going on here. I didn't even know this company existed, to be honest. So let's see here. Let's just have a look here. Let's have a look at Rochelle. Smart Armored Vehicles. So these are all Ukrainians, by the way, building. And let's not kid ourselves. I saw a bunch of people that looked like they weren't from Canada working there as well. They're all Ukrainians manufacturing armored vehicles. Look at them all. And don't think they can't dispatch them here in Canada against us as well. Look at all this stuff. Garda World. Obviously, they make all the security come, but look at those. Look at all those vehicles. Those are all being sent to Ukraine. All of those. How would you like to see those on the streets of Canada? Crazy, right? Let's see what else they have here. Fleet management, secure. Let's see here. Rochelle. I think I've heard of these guys. Look at them. This is right in Toronto. Look at these things. This is what they're building and sending to Ukraine. On your dollar. You are paying for these vehicles. You can say you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome, Ukraine. Look at all these things. Look at the guns on them. My goodness gracious. I've been saying this for a while, man. Israel and Ukraine are ranked number 1 for AI technology and drone technology. United States is close behind, sitting comfortably in second or third place. Then you have China. You know who's fifth? Canada, when it comes to AI. And we're partnering with Ukraine, who is the top dog with AI and drone technology. And they're trying to build an army in Europe saying you don't need the United States of America anymore. You need me. This is Zelensky's latest speech. You guys need me. You don't need the Americans, because when they pull out of NATO, you're going to need something better. And what is it? It's U-24. And I've been talking about this for 3 years, that Zelensky is wanting to build a new NATO under his regime called U-24. Just go look it up. He's already amassed over $1.3 billion on his website. Just look up U-24. And his goal is to make Ukraine headquarters over all the world. And if a nation goes against some other country and they're rebels, the deal is within 24 hours, U-24 can send an army to destroy that nation instantaneously. Or if somebody gets into a natural disaster, within 24 hours, you can send food and aid and all this. So I've been talking about this for 3 years now. And now we are in bed with Ukraine. We're partners with them. I had no idea before a week ago. I just knew that our prime minister is sending out money, but I didn't know we had a headquarters in Canada, in Ontario, to supply the war effort. I had no idea that that was going on. It's crazy, right? Yeah, you could say Iran's up there. I'm just telling you what the basically these 3 countries are jockeying for position. Israel, number 1, Ukraine, number 2, and they're back and forth. Why? Because they're all at war. And the more war experience they get, the better their weapons get. Talk about, have you ever heard of lavender? Have you ever heard of the gospel? Have you ever heard, not the gospel, but a gospel, which is a weapon? Have you ever heard of, what is it, arrow? I think it's arrow 2, arrow 3, the Iron Dome, the Iron Beam. These weapons are second to none. And Zelensky wanted, the prime minister before Netanyahu, he wanted the Iron Dome blueprints. And they said, no, go fly a kite. We can't give you the Iron Dome's blueprints because they're designed by U.S. and they entrusted us with the Iron Dome, and we have it. And if we give it to you and Russia takes over that area and they take the Iron Dome, we're finished. Besides, we have a deal with Russia over Syria, meaning Russia occupies that space and we can go and attack Syria whenever we want. That's the handshake deal that we have with Russia. We're friends with Russians. And Zelensky ran away upset, stomping his feet, dragging his knuckles, going, man, they won't give me the Iron Dome. I wonder who else. Maybe I'll go to Canada. And we give them a standing ovation and give them money and supply jobs all across Canada. If you're Ukrainian, come in, no problem. We'll get you a job. I see it all over the place. So am I now prejudiced? Am I now prejudiced because I'm white to another white person? No, it's weird that you have people looking for work and a Ukrainian comes in. I'm not talking about the Ukrainians that live here. We have tons of Ukrainians already live here. But the Ukrainians in Europe don't know the Ukrainians that live here, nor are they interested in learning about the Ukrainians here, nor are they interested about learning about Canada. Zero. They don't want to know anything about us. They want to be able to go home one day. Some of them are fleeing, obviously, for their lives. I have a friend that when I had coffee with him, I said, so what do you think about your president Zelensky? And he's like, he's not my president. And I can't go back home because if I go home, I'm going to get sent to the front lines and I'm going to be killed. So he fled. He's a teacher. So those people I respect. It's the other people that are just come in and then they work at a manufacturing plant behind closed doors and they're being supplied with money, jobs, all kinds of stuff for their family so that they can send weapons back home to kill people. It's weird to me. It doesn't sit well with me. And I don't think Canadians know what is happening in our back door. I really don't think we do. It's crazy, man. Let's see here. What else? Don't worry about us, America. We have our money spent on politician vacation trips, woodcutters, associated layoffs, feeding predators in cages. Trump isn't cleaning it up. Yeah, I think he was supposed to, right? Sounds like he's planning on making a Riviera in Gaza right now. It's just crazy, man. We talked about that yesterday. Let's see what else here. Chris, Global Raptor earlier, is talking about Canada making deals with NATO countries to make a nuke program to protect them from us, from the U.S. Yeah, possible. See, this is the stuff that makes me uncomfortable. You get Trump saying, like, hey, you guys could be the 51st. Trudeau leaves and goes to Mar-a-Lago, comes back, resigns, and then goes to talk to Zelensky when Donald Trump goes to Saudi Arabia to talk with Putin, and Zelensky's not invited. So then Trudeau goes to Zelensky and comforts him. Like, eventually we're going to be like, are they all in this stuff together? Like, are we being duped here? What's going on? Like, after a while, it starts getting weird. Like, everybody's buddy with everyone. And we're the one that has to show up to the pump. And it's like, man, I'm feeling like I'm being gouged here at the pump. And yet they're all traveling all over the world, buddy. And they're like, these are the most dangerous people in the world. And then they're hanging out, having dinner and making deals and stuff. And I'm like, what are we missing here? Why does it feel like we're outside looking in at these people that are making wars and rumors of wars and their technology, and they're just expending so much money on AI, and it's almost like they're putting built-in whisperers all over the place. And I think one day they're going to cash in, turn us over, all this kind of stuff. Like, it's all setting up to be a one world government. It is bizarre world. It's backwards to what you think should be happening. Yeah, and you have the World Economic Forum. And speaking of guillotines, it's interesting that Switzerland was one of the last guillotine nations or guillotine regions. I think 1970 was the last time. Maybe it was 1940. I think it was 70. Where they decided to take their executions inside, because it used to be a public thing where you can actually execute criminals with guillotines. That was a big thing in France. It was like, hey, kids, go get your popcorn. Go get your pop. We're going to go watch a beheading today. Frame. That's weird. I didn't do that. I won't touch my computer. It's doing weird things right now. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Zelensky is going to shake hands with Putin very soon. It's weird. When I put up this, I disappear. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, my computer, since I start talking about Zelensky, my computer is acting up now. It's doing all kinds of crazy things. Point is, it wouldn't surprise me if Zelensky and Putin handshake and all of a sudden they make a peace deal and all this kind of stuff. After we gave them billions of dollars, now it's our responsibility, don't you know, to rebuild Ukraine and make it even better than before. That's our job. That's on us. Because it was our fault, right? We're the ones that started the war. We're the ones that invaded Ukraine and Canada, right? It's the United States' fault that Russia invaded Ukraine. So it's our responsibility now to rebuild Ukraine. It's our responsibility to pay for rebuilding of Gaza, because we're the ones that actually were involved in this. Like, it's weird. To me, it's a bizarre world that you have homeless people that can't survive another night in the cold, and we're giving these nations billions of dollars to kill each other. It's weird. And we're paying for it, and we're excited about this. We're like, yeah, this is great. Let's go to war because we're so far away. Let's send our kids to war. Like, it's weird, man. It's a weird time. And yet there's people starving and need food and shelter. And we're like, you know what? Let's create some rules that if you're in an area where you live in a tent, we're going to have to kick you out or put you in jail or fine you until you can pay us back. But meanwhile, you can give billions of dollars to Zelensky and say, go do whatever you want. And all of a sudden, Hamas is invading Israel, strangely enough. It's kind of weird. I don't know. If they start tracing that money, I think Canada could be in trouble. All of a sudden, they start looking at the serial number of all the bills going, oh, it's going to Ukraine. Now it's going to Iran. That's from Canada. Those are Canadian dollars. Those are Canadian weapons. Look at it. It's got all our serial numbers all over it. That's from us. What makes you think they're from us, Shane? Well, I don't know. Because we have an armament factory in Ontario and we have our own vehicles going to Ukraine. Maybe that's something to do with it. Bizarre, right? Anyways, that's it for today's video. It's more of a rant, isn't it? But there's lots of stuff happening right now. And I think what seems to be happening is the wool is starting to come off of our eyes. Now we're starting to look around and go, wait a minute. Are we being duped here or what's going on? What's really going on? Like, Trump is supposed to clean the swamp up. He's supposed to get rid of all this stuff. And it seems like in some ways he's doing it. In other ways, he's spending time in Saudi Arabia. He's making deals. He's meeting with Zelensky. He's meeting with Putin. He's meeting with the prime minister of Israel. He's talking about, hey, wouldn't it be cool to build a hotel, a Riviera in Gaza and just level and get rid of 2 million people and tell them they can't come back? And meanwhile, there's all kinds of issues in the United States of America. It's just, it seems weird. It seems like the priorities are kind of moving around quite a bit. Anyways, that's it for today's show. Hope you got something out of this. If you have, make sure and subscribe. We also have Revelation 5 coming up on Sunday, this Sunday at 3:30 p.m., 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. And should be pretty fun. Should be a fun show. So we'll be talking about whatever happened in the week. We have a panelist of about 5 people on, and we talk about end times. We talk about the book of Revelation. We talk about the MOB. We talk about what's going on in Israel. We talk about Trump. So if you like those kind of topics, if you're interested in that, then check us out on Sunday. Other than that, that's it for today's show. I will see you guys in another video. Bye for now. One thing I forgot to mention, since there's a few of you still here, I have a little series that I've been doing. I kind of like this series. Let me see if I can find it here. This is on the Danites, and I modeled it a little bit after Dan Carlin, who's I'm a big fan of Dan Carlin, and I modeled, I don't know why I keep disappearing. I modeled myself after a little bit of his channel, Hardcore History. So I call it Hardcore Bible. And basically the idea behind it is I do a deep dive. I talk about things in the Bible that maybe isn't comfortable on a Sunday morning in church, or may not be comfortable talking about in Sunday school or a Bible study. And how I treat it, I basically treat it like a conversation, as though you're with a friend over coffee somewhere, maybe just sitting in a coffee shop, and we're just spitballing ideas as I go through some of the scriptures. And I've been focusing on the Danites. We're now into the story of Samson, which is one of my favorite stories, and I'm having fun talking about it. And my goal is to eventually tie it in to perhaps why the Danites are missing from the 144,000 sealed. And to me, it's an interesting dive. I love it. There's no camera. It's all off script. I don't have any notes. All I'm doing is just reading a little bit and then just sharing my thoughts like only the Black Swan can. And it's hardcore, man. We tackle some of the tough questions as we're going through some of the hardcore stories of the Bible. So if you want to be a part of that, it's real simple. You just subscribe to this channel, click on the notification bell, and whenever I upload a video, you'll be notified. And it's not live. It's pre-recorded, and then I just upload it, and then you can watch it whenever you want. And again, the idea is that you could feel comfortable listening to it while you're driving, and you don't have to worry about, did I miss a graphic? Did I miss a video that Shane showed? No, you can just relax. Just treat it like an audio presentation. So that's what I'm doing with Black Swan Hardcore. And we're actually going to be talking about the Benjamites. We're going to be talking about Sodom and Gomorrah and all the tough stories that are in the Bible. And we're going to tackle it in my Black Swan's Hardcore Bible. So I hope you'll join me. And thanks again. And I will see you in another video. Bye for now.